When people talk about becoming a PA, really talk about it, it usually starts in the same place, helping people, being in medicine, making a difference, the idea of walking into a room and actually doing something that matters. That's the conversation at the beginning. That's what lights people up at career fairs and PA school open houses. And those late-night threads where someone asks, "Is PA school worth it?" and means something much bigger than what they're typing. And eventually money comes up, debt comes up, the cost of getting there comes up, but it comes up later, after the inspiration, after the identity, after someone has already started to picture themselves in scrubs with a badge that says PAC. And by then, it's a harder conversation. Last episode, I left a question open. Would I do it again? I didn't answer it. I'm still sitting with it. Today, I want to add another layer to that question, the financial one, what it actually costs to become a PA, what you carry after graduation, and then the part I've been sitting with for a while now, whether I could afford to do it today. When I went to PA school, I didn't have much money and I counted each penny. That's not me being dramatic. I had loans, a very thin budget, and a very creative relationship with food. Here's what I mean by that. When I came home to visit family, I would load up whatever was in the house. Canned stuff, pantry stuff, leftovers they were going to throw out anyway. I would take it all back with me. Not because it was fun, because otherwise my diet was a big bag of gummy bears and a diet soda. That was a real thing that happened regularly. I'm not exaggerating. I remember some of my classmates, lattes several times a week, going out for dinner. I thought buying something from the cafeteria at the hospital was a splurge. I genuinely did not know how they were doing it. I still don't. All I can tell you is what I experienced, what I felt, what I lived through. I was not living expensively. I wasn't going out, wasn't taking vacations, wasn't doing anything that a reasonable person would call a luxury. I was just a student trying to get through. And the margins were so thin that a family visit was basically a supply run. And when I graduated, I had about $100,000 in debt. That was just the PA program. Tuition, living expenses, the clinical year costs, not including undergrad, just the masters, $100,000. That was over 20 years ago. And I want you to stay with that number for a second, because we're about to talk about what it costs today. And it's going to hit differently once you know where I started. Here is the part that nobody calculates until they're already in it. Applying to PA school costs money, real money, before you set foot in a single class. The main application platform is called CASPA. According to CASPA's published fee schedule of the 2025-2026 application cycle, it costs $184 to submit to your first program and $61 for every program after that. When I went through this decades ago, I applied to 5 schools. That was my window. That was what I could manage, financially, logistically, emotionally. And it was a lot less than it is today. Today, most applicants apply to more programs because the acceptance rates are competitive and you want options. The more programs you add, the more that CASPA fee climbs. Then interviews. Each school's process is different. Some do them in person, some have moved to online. If you're traveling for an in-person interview, you're looking at flights, hotels, transportation. That adds up for every invite you get. When I applied, I didn't fully reckon with what it had already cost me just to try. It's not the loudest number in the conversation, but it's real. And it comes out of your pocket before the first day of school, now the program itself. According to the Physician Assistant Education Association for the 2024 to 2025 academic year, the average total tuition for a PA Master's program runs about $98,000 for in-state or resident students and over $107,000 for out-of-state students. That's the full 27-month program, all fees included, and that number has not been stable. As cited by the PA Life in 2024, in 2010, public in-state programs averaged around $32,750. By 2015, that had climbed to roughly $43,000. The upward trend has continued from there. Don't forget to add living expenses on top of that. I'm not going to give you a national average because I don't think one clean number exists that means anything. What I can tell you is what I lived: gummy bears, borrowed groceries, and very thin margins. The clinical year is its own chapter. I had to pay for housing at rotation sites. When I went through, some rotations helped with housing, some did not. I did a lot of searching. I tried to stay as close to home as possible to save money. But when you are trying to fill a rotation, you do what you need to do. Sometimes that means going where they send you and figuring out housing on short notice, far from home. According to Physician Assistant Education Association data from 2024, the average out-of-pocket cost for students paying for remote clinical site housing was about $2,200, with some situations running much higher. The extra set of scrubs you need to have, the professional business attire required at some rotations, the added recommended reading material or supplies from the preceptors can add up. Those costs are real and they are not in the tuition figure. According to data from AAPA and PEA as reported in 2024, when you finish the program, the average debt at graduation sits around $112,000 to $117,000, and the starting salary for a new grad PA is about $118,000 a year, according to the AAPA 2024 salary report, nearly a 1-to-1 ratio. Debt roughly equal to your first year's gross salary before taxes. Run the monthly payment math on a loan in that range at current federal graduate rates, roughly 8%, on a standard 10-year repayment plan. And you are looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of $1,400 a month. That is a calculated estimate, not a published figure, but that is the ballpark. Every month, for 10 years. There are income-driven repayment options that cap your payments based on what you earn, and if you work at a qualifying non-profit hospital, there is a federal loan forgiveness path available after 10 years of qualifying payments. Worth understanding, worth looking into, but the specific programs are actively shifting right now, and I'm not going to name a plan that may not look the same by the time you're reading the fine print. What I will say: run your own numbers. Do the actual math on what leaves your checking account every month. Here's what nobody puts in the recruiting material: the costs don't stop when you graduate. I'm going to walk through this as an ERPA because that's my lens. Different practice settings, primary care, surgical specialties, urgent care, may carry different CME requirements or additional licensing depending on where you work and what you do. What I know is what I've navigated. Every 2 years, you pay a certification maintenance fee to the NCCPA, the national certifying body, to keep your PAC credential active. As of today, that's $180 every 2 years. Every 10 years, you take a recertification exam, another $350. Every 2 years, 100 hours of continuing medical education. 50 of those must be Category 1. Your employer may cover the cost. A 2022 survey put the average employer CME allowance at around $2,500 a year. But not everyone has that. Locum work, independent contracting, career transitions. You may be funding your own CME out of pocket. If you work in a setting where you prescribe controlled substances, and ERPAs will, you need a DEA registration number. The current registration fee as of this year for mid-level practitioners is $888 every 3 years. State license fees vary by state, but they are real recurring costs. Most states charge a few $100s every 2 years just to keep your license current. None of these are optional. Every single one of them is a condition of practicing. The cost of being a PA doesn't end at graduation. It just changes shape. I've been doing this for over 20 years. I think I still love the work. I'm struggling right now, but I chose it on purpose. This is what I do. It's who I am. For 2 decades, it has been part of my identity in a way that goes deeper than a job title. But I've been sitting with this question since I started pulling these numbers together. If I were 22 years old today, no career yet, looking at PA school the way it costs right now, tuition averaging close to $100,000, maybe more, application costs before I even begin, monthly loan payments that would follow me for a decade, if not more, and the ongoing annual cost of just staying licensed stacking up on top of that. Would I do it? Honestly, I'm not sure I could. That's not a sentence I said lightly. And it's not the same as saying it wasn't worth it. I would not trade what I've built in this career. I mean that. But worth it emotionally and financially feasible are not the same question. And I think we do a disservice to anyone who's considering this path when we collapse them into one. When I went through school, the numbers were hard. They were legitimately hard. But they were possible. I made it work. On gummy bears and borrowed food and very thin margins, but I made it work. Looking at the numbers today, I don't know if I could say that. I don't know if the math works the same way, and I think that's something the people who care about this profession need to be honest about. Not to scare pre-PA students away, not to say don't do it, but because the next generation of providers deserves the real picture. Not the brochure. If you are looking at PA school right now, really looking, running the numbers, not just dreaming, do not let anyone sell you a feeling instead of a financial plan. Know what you're applying to school for. Know what it's going to cost to apply. Know what you're borrowing. Know what you'll owe when you're done. Know what it costs to stay licensed for the next 30 years. And then, with eyes completely open, decide. Because the work is real and it matters and it is worth something profound. But it only stays worth it if you can actually survive it. That's what I wish someone had told me, not to scare me off, just to make sure I knew what I was walking into, eyes open, that's all. If this helped you think through something you've been carrying, the financial side of this path that nobody really talks about, hit like. It takes a second and it means something. And if you want to keep hearing it straight, the parts of this career that don't make it into the recruiting pitch, subscribe. We're not doing highlight reels here, just the honest version. Take care of yourselves. Seriously.